Just last summer, my whole extended family took this great big trip to Banff and Jasper, Canada. And while we were there, one of the things that the whole family wanted to do was take this glass walkway that extended over a canyon, a deep mountain canyon, and it was over the Athabasca Glacier. So you could get a good, very high view of the canyon that was below and the glacier that was below. Now, I know that this thing's over-engineered because it's got to be insured by a company somewhere. And so it's out there, and the idea is that you walk across this glass and you look down. But here's the truth of me. I'm afraid of heights. I don't like heights at all. I get terrified of heights. But the truth is, too, is that my children being on heights scares me more than my lack of heights. And so I had to go out there just so I could be with my children. My worst fear would be if something happened to them on this glass archway and I wasn't there. So today we're going to talk about letting go of fear in our lives. All kinds of fear comes and enters into our lives at one time or another. Sometimes they're phobias, like my fear of heights or people's fear of spiders. Or sometimes fear can actually get in the way of how we live. We have fears of letting other people down, or fear of our lives not mattering, or if we're really honest, this existential fear of dying. Sometimes we have this fear of trying something new, or this fear of missing out. We all are surrounded in our lives with all kinds of fears. I heard a pastor use fear as an acronym recently, and I think it describes fear well. FEAR, false evidence appearing as reality. You see, when I was out on that over-engineered glass archway over the canyon of death, my body and my brain, I don't know which one, was convinced that I was falling. I held onto the railing super, super tight, and I tried to keep my eye on my children instead of the glass below me or the mountains aside me. I didn't really enjoy it at all. My husband, Ryan, is an architect, and he came over and he tried to hold my hand and console me, just telling me all about how many tons could actually fit on there, and that there was no chance in any way that this thing was going to fall down. But you see, in my fight or flight response, it was false evidence appearing as reality. In my head or my body or my brain, somewhere I was convinced that I was going to fall, that my kids were going to fall out there on the glass archway. And when I think about that fear and I wonder where it came from, I can start to think about how it started to develop in my life about 12 years ago. 12 years ago, I was working at a university and I was a campus minister. And it was the first week of my job there when all the students were moving into their dorm rooms. And the students are moving in, and all of a sudden there was this buzz all over campus, and I was helping students move in. But what had happened is that a younger sister of one of the girls moving in, a 3-year-old, had pushed open one of the old dorm screens and fallen out the window. She fell out the 3rd-story window, and she hit an air conditioning unit on the 1st story before hitting the ground underneath. So my first job on this campus was to go and provide pastoral care to this family, to this girl who had fallen outside of the window. I mean, miraculously, it was the air conditioner that saved her life. I mean, her body was bruised and broken in a lot of places, and there was a lot of trauma for everyone involved. But this little girl, she made a full recovery. But there was something that marked me by that experience. And since then, I've struggled with heights. It's false evidence appearing as reality. You see, when we fear that we're going to disappoint people, we're probably not going to actually disappoint them, but we're imagining that we are and that we do. Or if we fear that we're missing out, we imagine that they're all having a great time without us. But the reality is that we're probably not actually missing anything. Or when we fear that this awful thing is going to happen to the people that we love and care about, the odds are not actually in our favor that those things are going to happen. Things are probably going to be okay. When we fear that we aren't going to measure up, there's not even a possibility of that actually being a reality, because the only measure that counts is the measure that comes from God, who, by the way, thinks that you're pretty awesome. You see, when my mom was dying of cancer in her last few days, she knew that she was going to die, and we sat down in her hospital room, and we knew she only had 36 to 48 hours left, and she looked at me, and I could hear the fear in her voice, and she said to me, she said, "Angie, what if I haven't done enough? Which broke my heart because I couldn't imagine any other person in the world having done more with her 67 years. She said, what? Haven't I done good enough? And I said, Mom, you've been so great. You're the best mom and grandma in the world. And then she started to cry and she said, what if I haven't done enough for heaven? I think she put into words that day what we all kind of secretly fear, that what we've done in this life is not enough. In Psalm 56, David says, when I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. Notice it doesn't say not to fear. It says instead that fear is inevitable. It just doesn't get the last word. God does. You see, God had my mom in this life and has my mom in the next life. 365 times you can read the words, do not fear, in the Bible. It's like God's reassuring you over and over again, every minute of every day, that the reality is God's reality and not what we're making up in our heads in fear. God's saying, trust me in this life. I have got you. I am with you. You are enough because I am enough. So do not fear. So how do we let go of fear in our lives? Well, I think we have to let go of the lies, and we have to live in the truth of reality. And the truth of reality is what God says about you and about me, that God's got you in and through and among all of it in this life and the next. So we can let go of our fear.